everybody, Karen Roby and Greg Nichols here for ZDNet, talking today about RFID emerging as a key tool during the pandemic. Of course, Greg talking about radio frequency identification. Why has this been so important when it comes to the vaccine rollout?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Last month I wrote about a really novel deployment of RFID technology to track vaccine temperature. As states rush to distribute the COVID-19, the various vaccines that are now in the market to the public, RFID has been a really important and readily deployable tool to, verify temperature consistency. And that's thanks to firms like PowerCast, which is, they developed technology in RF wireless power. And they've pivoted to help the healthcare providers who are trying to roll out this vaccine. Since then, and this is a story that's moving very quickly as the vaccine rollout gains steam, RFID continues to prove an uncommonly valuable tool for managing the supply chain complexities of the vaccine distribution, and it can really hardly be implemented soon enough.
Okay, yeah, certainly time is of the essence, Greg. Talk about RFID in terms of where it's been most valuable.
This all started with a kind of logistics hurdle inherent in this particular rollout. And I reached out to a fellow named Dr. Alan Portnoy, who's pharmacy operations manager at Reading Hospital. And he told me that, while the new FDA-approved COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, for example, are definitely a welcome reprieve from the effects of the pandemic, hospital pharmacies are facing this immensely complicated rollout. As 2020 ended, American hospitals had to pivot on a dime almost overnight to store this very temperamental vaccine, whichever one it is, and outfit their hospitals as vaccination centers to ensure that they were properly stocked with the vaccines themselves, that they had enough ancillary supplies, and the staff needed to make the rollout successful. So vaccines from the various pharma companies working on COVID-19 have drastically different storage requirements, making the process of shipping, storing, handling, and distributing the vaccines just dizzyingly complicated and complex. Dr. Portnoy told me that it's a tall order, especially after months of pandemic clinical stress, which impacts staffing issues and just makes it a very complicated lift for people who are already kind of strained and constrained by the unfortunate circumstances of the pandemic. So the Pfizer vaccine, just as one example, it has to be kept at -80 degrees Fahrenheit. And once removed from the freezer, it's only viable for a very specific window of time. In that case, it's 5 days. And then it reaches its beyond use state and has to be discarded. And one of the major problems right now is that much of the inventory tracking is still done by hand. So, someone takes it out of the fridge and they look at the number on the vaccine and they write it down somewhere. And that's how it's tracked. And that is obviously a workflow that is just ripe with potential for error. Human error is kind of an infallible law when it comes to any kind of attention-oriented task. And because these vials are counted by hand and they're very vulnerable, you get a lot of waste, and you also have the potential for an ineffective vaccination, which obviously is not a good thing. So those complexities have made humble RFID technology, which is really made for tracking, made for kind of easy, inexpensive, readily deployable tracking of inventory, kind of a technological linchpin of this entire rollout in very short order.
Yeah, and obviously that vaccine's like gold, right? You don't want any to go to waste or, be mismanaged in any way. Greg, in terms of RFID though, prevalent in healthcare?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So RFID, of course, is super established in a whole bunch of different sectors. It's a best practice technology for inventory tracking in retail, for aerospace and manufacturing. If you visit a hotel, your key card uses RFID technology, and it's really prevalently used in retail loss prevention and everything from pet microchipping to marathon race timing. So all kinds of different applications. And a huge advantage of the technology is just that it's so abundant. And that includes in healthcare applications, to your question, which means it has a very low bar to clear with hospital and pharmacy procurement officers, the people who are actually figuring out kind of how best to roll out their systems to track the vaccine distribution. So RFID has been a key tool in healthcare for more than a decade. And just last year in summer, I believe it was August 2020, the industry launched what's called Dose ID, which is the first healthcare industry consortium around RFID best practice usage. It's because of that, it's been a very kind of swiftly deployed technology when it comes to putting chips on vials of vaccine in order to track those effectively and build processes and procedures around those. A good example is a company called KitCheck, which I spoke to the product manager, Mike Olson of KitCheck, and they very quickly have teamed up with folks like Dr. Portnoy to prepare, in that case, Reading Hospital and satellite vaccination storage areas for implementation of kind of ultra freezer workflows, which are super temperature dependent, and really making sure their systems and processes are up to snuff. So coming out of the pandemic, which has really shown a light on how fragile the vaccination pipeline is, how fragile supply chains are, RFID is poised to really expand its footprint in healthcare, and I think that's going to be one big takeaway technologically from a very complex situation that we find ourselves in, which is that simple technologies like RFID really can play foundational roles in buttressing otherwise fragile systems.
All right, Greg, we appreciate your report on this. Of course, you've got much more on RFID up on ZDNet in your full story there, and we hope all of you will check it out. Thanks for watching.